In those movies where the landlord comes, he knocks on the door, he's like, "Hey, I'm here for the rent," and she's like, "Oh my god, I can't pay it.
Oh no!
Is there anything that I can do?"
Oh no!
And then it's like, "Wow, chicka, wow, wow."
No,
And then you
never.
figure out,
Registered as a sex
now
offender.
help me. Why can't you do that? Like, why isn't that an even exchange? If you're willing to say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to clear your $1,200, $1,600, $2,000 a month rent for you to break me off every month, once every month." Like, why isn't that like fair exchange?
What were we just discussing?
About how you rich. You got rich people problems. You're talking about rich people problems right now.
Nah, man.
So you said that one of your many properties are having issues, and you had to call out Roto-Rooter to come help you.
I had to call out Roto-Rooter. I had to be Roto-Rooter, bro. That's how non-rich I am. I had to be the Roto-Rooter.
As a landlord, you have to learn how to do these things yourself, or you choose to do them yourself, so that if you in the future if something happens, then you know how to do it.
Yeah, a little of both, depending on the severity of the issue. Like with the Roto-Rooter that I was playing when I decided to play that role, I was able to do that. So I could actually work for Roto-Rooter if anything were to happen. But when I saw that there was significant damage to the pipe going into the ground, it was cracked. Yeah, that's not something that you could just learn in like a day. So I had to pay somebody to do that. So yeah.
So that's part of the reason why you have a lot of people, when they push home ownership on people, they never speak about those issues or things that come up like that.
No,
I heard you talking about renting like a backhoe and a drill and all types of stuff to fix the problem, but everybody promotes ownership and don't talk about having to actually maintain the property.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, and it's true what they say too. It takes you a while, a couple of years before you actually like recoup the money back. If you really look at it, like a lot of times I kind of like just toughen a lot of things out, but I'm actually taking loss like monthly all the time since I've like done this. So the issue is this. I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'll be lying if I didn't say that, or preface the whole thing with that. But in saying that, it's been difficult ever since. So think about it. I've been doing this for 6 years, and 2 of those years already COVID, and I'm still paying for COVID 2 years after. So you talk about 4 years. I've been doing it for 6 years. So I had 2 good years.
So with COVID, you guys didn't get paid for that? Like the owners, the property owners, you guys didn't get money from the state or like federal grant money that would allow you guys to continue without the funds of the tenant?
Well, it all depends if the tenant filled out the forms or the applications. Now, if they did, they probably did get aid. Like my tenants were able to get aid one time for 6 months. They didn't pay for 6 months. They got the aid. But we're talking about 2 years. That whole thing went on.
Wow.
So there you go. So they only give it to you once, especially since you can't finagle the paperwork again. They want to know if you're working. So when you can't finagle that paperwork of you working or not, they're not giving it to you a second time. And we actually
it's hard for you guys to get them out.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was extremely difficult. And the difficult part was it's not the difficult part was the courts were backed up. They were backed up for oh my God, it was ridiculous. I want to say they were backed up 2 years backed up with all these cases.
But you have people that were in favor of the tenants. You have people that were saying that these landlords are being greedy by trying to put these tenants out. They're saying that you guys being a landlord, that understanding the situation and how it was a global pandemic, like why were you guys so adamant about taking people to court, kicking them out, knowing everybody's situation? Because at that point, everybody wasn't working. So how would you defend the landlords in the situation?
No, there's a proper way to do things when there's issues, and you go through the necessary procedures that the government was able to provide for people. And if those things were done, there's nothing you can say to your tenant at that time, and there was like I think more eviction moratorium, so you couldn't even evict people anyway. So there was nothing to say. But you should, as a landlord, when you're not getting the money, you still communicate to ask what's going on. Like, I haven't received the money for this month. I just want to know what's going on, and I blah blah blah. I know the times, I see everything's going on, but what are your plans moving forward? When you ask questions like that, mind you, you ask that question like in the middle of the conversation, you kind of like feel things out, see how everything is going, because you never know what's going on with the pandemic, with COVID, who might be passing away or family members and different things like that. Because I've had so many the tenants. I think every single tenant I had a family member pass away, so that was one thing. So you never know what's going on in those times. But the communication, what happens is when you call, the communication sounds like this, and this is what they don't tell you. It's more like, man, you don't know what time it is, man. You see what time it is, man. Don't be asking me about no rent, man. And that's the answer you get, and that's the only communication you get. So where do you go from there? You try to reach out. You tell them about the programs. The programs take care of you for 6 months that you didn't pay. Now you don't qualify for the next 6 months. I don't know why. I didn't fill out these things. I don't know why, but you're clearly working. So it was just one of those things. None of the money ever came. We're talking about what, 12,000, 6,000. A boy got hit for what, 18,000. A lot of people was getting hit. Some people got hit way more than that. There's people that's never paid rent. What are you to do as the business owner? Like, are you just supposed to just sit back and not say anything? Because that'd be like bad business.
Well, for me, understanding the pandemic and what excuse me, and what people went through, I think my issue is that everybody's upset at the wrong people. Because while the government gave money to the tenants, it sounds like they left a lot of the landlords out. So why weren't you guys pushing for people to kind of advocate for you to say, hey, where's our money? Like, why, if you had, let's say, a 3-unit property, right? And you're claiming that these people didn't pay you for however long the pandemic lasted, whether it was a year, 2 years, why weren't you able to kind of go in and request that money from the government? Or why wasn't there special funding for you guys to say, hey, landlords, we know we're going to give your tenants money, and they may or may not give it to you, but we're going to have this kitty, almost like a landlord PPP, where we send out money, to all these landlords. And again, it sounds like the government is finding ways to divide everybody. And secondary question to a person like yourself, have you now, with elections coming up and things of that nature, how active have you been with these elected officials to say, in the future, if something like this was to happen, I need somebody that's going to have my back as a landlord to make sure that, I'm covered, that I don't lose my property because they're not paying? Because I get that while you're expecting your money and the tenant can't give it to you, the government is also expecting their money, and you kind of sing the same song that the tenant is singing, right? Hey, I'm not getting any money, and the government is saying, hey, you got 3 people living in your house for $2,000 a piece. Where's my money? So, are you actually reaching out? Like, are you involved enough to say you're going to make sure that the next person that gets in office has your best interest as a person who's a homeowner?
That's a good question. The deal is, I don't think any of the candidates have my best interests, because number one, with the COVID, the issue was the backup in the courts. All I really want the government to do is help me, help people, because I pay my taxes, stick to my lease. That's all I need you to do, is just help them stick to the lease. Because as for individuals, we have rights. You don't supposed to coerce or force, bully, manipulate. All those things are wrong to do to people because they don't pay you money. You're not supposed to do that forcefully. That's just wrong. So you have things in place for situations like that. And that's what I need the government for, to help me in cases like that, help me figure out how 2 parties that signed a lease agreement are going to make this thing work. And if that would have happened, but mind you, the courts were backed up, so I get it. But if that would have happened with the government, what I want the government to do is intervene on that more, especially when you have a lease and you have these stipulations to the lease, to just blatantly just break the lease over and over and over again. That right there was the issue for me. And I don't really see like, I don't really see even, I don't understand, especially when we talk about the presidents at least. I just don't get how these two individuals, like I like people who can articulate and I can like see where things are going and understand things. I don't really understand like these two candidates, and I haven't for a long time. Everything that these people like the presidents and they say, it always seems like it's like a hidden agenda behind all of it. You know, the person I would want to
But
vote for would have like the very little possible intervention with with anything as far as business. Very little possible. All I want them to do is
well,
just protect the individual rights. That's it.
well, they are protecting the individual rights. I mean, right now it seems like the tenant rights are being protected, but let's before we even get to that federal level of government, we have local levels of government. So I think for me, even with the local level of government, you guys are not going to feel like you're being represented because you can have a landlord that lives in Cherry Hill but owns a house in North. From a number standpoint, obviously the government is going to look out for the tenant over the landlord because you can't vote in North. You own property there, but you technically reside in Cherry Hill, right?
Right.
So when I'm going out looking for numbers and people to come out to the polls and vote for me, it's not the dude in Cherry Hill that's going to come out and vote for me. It's the people that actually live down here. So obviously, I'm going to advocate for the people that live down here more than the person who just owns a property here and you slide in, collect your rent, and then leave. But on a local level of government, my question is why haven't you guys pushed for these elected officials to say, hey, why didn't you guys reach out for federal funding for landlords, right? As a landlord who owns private property, as a person who's helping to make sure that, your homeless population isn't, skyrocketing. Why haven't you guys kind of done something for us, scratch our back to do something of that nature instead of basically trying to get it off of a person who didn't have it in the first place? Because more than likely, if they were out of work for let's say a year and a half, and they got 6 months worth of relief, that money is going to be allocated somewhere else. The landlord thinks that the money should be allocated towards him. PSC&G wants their money. All these other entities want their money, and it's like, okay, we gave you this little bit of money, and now everybody wants a piece of it.
The problem is for me is and I had to write it down because I didn't want to forget it because no, that was good questioning. And what I'm going to say might sound, a little harsh, but for 15 years, I traded my time for money and I played the game the way that the so-called man, would want it to be played. I put my time in. I figured out a way to take advantage in this somewhat capitalist system, and I became a landlord. So this is going to throw you, right? The problem is, that's what I'm saying with the government. If the government, and this is not being extrapolated over a long period of time, so I'm just spitballing right here. We're just having fun. But if the government were to take away, like, look, we're not helping you. You know what you sign lease, you got to go by the lease. We're not helping you pay. If they were to say that, what would be the issue? I know it sounds crazy because what I'm saying is I'm coming from somebody who used to rent. So I played the game the way it's supposed to be played for 15 years. And I did it that way. And I said, okay, this is the way the game is played. If you have an individual like myself who's going to abide by a lease, I like this system. I abide by the lease. I have a place to live. I designed this lease to live in this place. One of my places had roaches. I still signed the lease every month and I lived in that place. Do you understand? I made my complaints. They did the best they can, but I still lived in that place and I paid my rent every month, didn't complain. They did the best they can for the roaches. So I played the game and I played the system the way they would want to play for 15 years. So now I was looking like, if this is the way the game is played, this is how the reason why I wanted to start doing real estate. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to have spots with roaches in it, no, but I can create these spots that people will love to live in. I can create a lease and I have good individuals who would abide by the lease. That's all I want. I don't want the government even helping me out. Just help me have people abide by the lease. Like, that's what I think you should do. I pay my taxes. This help me have people abide by the lease, and I'll be fine.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for the tenants, right? They didn't shut down the government. They didn't shut down the world because of COVID. The government did. So to say that they need to find a way, they didn't tell the government to close the buildings down or jobs down, right? This is something, this was a federal mandate that came down. You know, we have this global pandemic. Nobody's supposed to be outside except first responders. And if you want to go to a restaurant, got to wear a mask and take it off while you're eating, put it back on after you're done eating because COVID takes a break while you're putting food in your mouth and then cover it back up. It goes back to fighting the mask. So we all know how foolish it was. And then at the end of the day, finding out that all of it was pretty much make believe was even worse, right? But just as they're dealing with the situation, you're dealing with it. I mean, I don't think anybody had dealt with a pandemic of this nature previous to this, right? So here I am. I'm told I can't go out to work, but my landlord is still expecting his money. And what's crazy is a person other than yourself, there were landlords that were getting monies from the government to cover their loss of income, and they still were adding on money or basically charging their tenants, even though they received like relief money, right? So again, I think we at times tend to pit people against each other, whether it be rich or poor, working class versus, you know, whatever other class. And it's like, I don't think anybody's really sitting back and realizing that neither party had anything to do with anything. But if the government is going to pick and choose who they give the money to, then my question is, why did they pick this class? Because you could have easily said, hey, who do you owe? Well, I live in Ronald's building and I haven't paid 6 months worth of rent. Okay. Me being the federal government, I'm going to send Ronald a check on your behalf and not give you the money and say, hey, give this money to Ronald, because Ronald isn't the only person that I owe. And let's say I do give Ronald the money, right? Now I owe PSE&G and they come and cut me off. Or now I owe, you know, the water company, they come and cut me off, right? That becomes another issue. The cable company, these guys are still charging. Like everybody was charging. And I see that the government shut things down. But there were certain people who, to me, should have been regulated and they weren't. Like, I don't think anybody should have owed a PSE&G bill during that particular point in time. Especially because, honestly, depending on what part of New Jersey you live in, PSE&G is the only game in town. So they really run off of like grant money and all that other stuff. There was no need for them to still be charging people for usage, especially when you're home now, right? You're home, your kids are home, everybody's working from home. You know, if they still had a job, like you're working from home, you had, now these bills are going up, right? Your people's consumption of food was going up. The local government was giving out SNAP benefits or welfare cards because they realized what the issue was. So why didn't these other entities who are for-profit businesses do the same thing?
Right. See, the deal is, obviously the government, when they came up with that stuff, they had good intentions, right? They had good intention. These programs were for people who were actually in financial hardship, who actually lost their job, who could not get their job back, the jobs weren't in place, who got sick. There was a lot of things for those particular people. The deal is, when you open up and you have programs like that, there are other people that just come out and take advantage of it. There were people manipulating the system that were working, going on vacation. And I have fact about this, going on vacation. I don't know with what money. Obviously, they're not paying me, but they're going on vacation. And then there's times where I'm in court where I have a person tell me, oh, I got your money. I got the money. I just want to see what they say in the court. It never got the money. So you had situations like that more often than not. And what happens is this. How rare is it? Like, if I were to tell you, like, Rob, I had a situation and this lady, like, she clearly just lost her job, bro. Out of nowhere, she lost her job. She was on the phone with me every other day, keeping me abreast of her situation. How can I ask her for money or tell her anything about any money when I clearly see she's not getting any money? She's trying the best she can. When you sign the contract as adults, you have to keep in contact with your landlord. That's what you should do. The individuals that are complaining a lot of times, they didn't do any of those things. They didn't stay in contact with
I
the
agree.
landlord. They didn't do none of those things. So
I agree, but I think when you talk about people taking advantage of the system or the government, I think it's a very skewed look at things because nobody talks about the fact that the government's been taking advantage of people for years, decades, right? Whether we're talking about race wise or the fact that they tax your earned income
that's what I'm
only for you
saying.
to spend
They do
yeah
too
only for you to
much.
spend the money and then they tax you again. So when the average person finds a way, like it's crazy, but I didn't see the problem with the whole PPP thing when people took advantage of it because to me it was somebody found that loophole and they jumped right through it and they brought a couple of people with them, right? But it's no one from the government can actually explain to you why you're taxed as many times as you do, right? Or as many times as they tax you. So when a person finds a loophole or when people are looking for loopholes for these things, it's unfortunate, yeah, because the little man or, in your case, the big man who got all these properties, he gets screwed, but it's because these people have been getting screwed for so long. And again, we end up fighting each other, not realizing that this guy's trying to get over and, yeah, he owes you a couple of $100 and he feels like, he did something. But in all actuality, he's not trying to get back at Ronald. He's really just trying to get back at the government who's been screwing him for the longest. Right. So yeah, Ronald misses out on, $1,600 and that's a lot of money. Right. To us broke people, that's a lot of money. Right. To you, to probably like one of the wheels for your cars or something. But for them, it's the ultimate like fu to the government because it's like I finally got over it. So yeah, the guy probably tells you that he has the money and he just wants to see what the court is going to say because the court's going to say, if you don't have his money, you got to get out, right? All right, if I get out, I don't got to pay him the 16. No, and then he's going to go somewhere else where you probably got to put down 800 to move in, right? And he can save that money to do whatever it is that he wants to do. Were there people that went on vacation? 100%. I'm pretty sure that there were people that thought they weren't going to make it to the next week, the next day, the next month because they saw their friends or family members, coworkers dying, whether it be because of COVID or people just dying because of stress. Right? People were. I think COVID locking people down, it either brought something out of a lot of people or people were put in a position that they didn't expect themselves to be in. Like there were people who were with their spouses that they realized they can't stand each other. There were people who were forced together that ended up in pandemic relationships. Then you had people who realized how lonely they were, right? So when people started going out, or I think what was crazy to me was when people got to the point of you were told like, yo, if you go outside, you're gonna get COVID, and there were people that just got to a point where they just said, screw it, and just went outside anyway.
Right.
And then you had the dudes who were raw dogging the air, so they was like, yeah, you're supposed to wear a mask. He's like, nah, I don't want to do that. It's cool. If I get it, I get it. If I die, I die. I'm good. It was like some people just came to like this realization that it was like either I'm gonna die or I'm not. It's like if I'm meant to get it, I'm gonna get it. If not, and then certain people started asking questions, or the people that they deem to be dumb people, right? Well, why do I have to wear a mask? This doesn't make any sense. How does this little piece of cloth help, to protect me from this global disease? And it was like, oh, you guys are stupid. You don't know
But
anything.
but Rob, before you keep going, I want to make something real clear. I would have loved to be here and share a story with you about an individual that really went through a shitty time during COVID, one of my tenants, and they weren't working anymore, and how basically we worked out something and I still have them with me because we were able to work out something and move along and or whatever the case was. But I don't have that story, bro. And I'm an empathetic person. I just don't have that story. My stories are too often the people who look to get over. And it's not something I didn't expect. And that's why when I try to buy property, I want to look at the price and I want to multiply it by 70 because that's the price I can offer you. 70% of what the price is or what the ARV would be. That's the reason why. For those particular reasons right there. You never know. I was
So
prepared
as a,
for a situation like this basically. And I
so
got lucky.
as a person who's watched various genres of movies, and you could probably see where I'm going to go with this, right? Um, I would I was always under the mindset that when the tenant couldn't pay, that song starts playing in the background like "Bow Chicka Wow Wow." Is it that type of situation or not?
What the no,
Is
no.
that,
No, it more look, bro. What was gonna
that went
happen
over
was
your head, didn't it?
yeah, it went over my head. It went over my head. But let me tell you.
You know in those movies where the landlord comes, he knocks on the door, he's like, "Hey, I'm here for the rent," and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't pay it.
Oh no.
Is there anything that I can do?"
Oh no, no.
And then it's like, "Bow chicka wow wow."
No, no,
And
no,
then you
never.
figure out like another payment plan. No, it's
No,
not one of
no.
those situations.
Business is business. Business is business. I can't. No, 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 no. I wouldn't do
You can't
that.
mix the.
Nah, I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't recommend it. But
Well,
yeah,
there was a guy in New York, I think, that did that. He just got arrested.
I
where
knew
he
a
was
guy who
trading
did that.
sexual favors for. Oh, you did?
Yeah, I knew a guy who did
Is he
that. Yep.
is he in jail now?
No, he's not in jail. He was older, so they worked out something with him. But he's definitely probably on the pedophile list or whatever that case, whatever
Now,
that
why
thing is.
couldn't you
Registered as a sex
now
offender.
help me? Why can't you do that? Like, why isn't that an even exchange? If you're willing to say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to clear your $1,200, $1,600, $2,000 a month rent for you to break me off every month, once every month," like, why isn't that like fair exchange?
That's not in the contract. That's number one. If it was in the contract, it might be a fair exchange. I don't know. That's not in the lease. I don't know. Put it this way. I don't know what like how legal the legality part of it. I don't know. But what I'm saying is if that was in the lease, I wonder what situation be. And two consenting adults, somebody actually signed a lease that said that. Like if I can't
Exactly.
pay, I can offer sexual favors. And if the landlord agrees, this can help pay X amount of my rent. Maybe it needs to be written in there, but then that'd be kind of like prostitution. And we don't do prostitution. So that's probably the reason why. I'm just guessing, like, because you know what I'm saying? If it's in the lease.
It's two consenting adults. So if it's two consenting adults and he's saying, "Listen, I'll wipe this bill off for this," I don't understand how the cops got involved.
This is why I don't want the government involved, period. Like, not that I was going to make any lease that way, but I just want people to abide by the lease and the government comes in that aspect. But to your point, I think that's a really good question. I mean, obviously, morally, probably seemingly incorrect and not right,
Hey,
but
keep your moral compass and your moral posture. I just want to know.
so you got to watch out. You got to watch out people that say stuff like that because they're just letting you know, like, look, I want to be able to get away with whatever the fuck I do. Don't judge me. That's kind of like saying the same thing.
Those are.
But look at that. We both know it'd be wrong, right? It'd be wrong if a tenant couldn't pay for the landlord to say, look, if you do this, then I'll wipe off this amount of money. We know that that's morally incorrect.
Set it off? You remember Set It Off?
I'm bad with it, but explain.
You remember Jada Pinkett and Nate? She needed that money for her brother to go to school. Nate told her she had to do something strange for some change.
But see, that's what I'm saying. That's like being coerced. And coercion is not. No.
She asked him for money. He said, "Hey, listen, it's not that I don't have the money, but
here's the problem.
You ain't gonna be able to get it for nothing." She said she thought about it and she said,
"It's morally wrong.
Nate, let's go."
It's morally wrong because that individual has a right not to have the money. You don't have a right to coerce them while they don't have the money. They're not in the right state of mind while they don't have the money. That's not right. That's right. That's where I'm at with that. That's not right. You can't do that. That's why. But
right
now, no, hear me out. I do have a different feeling. If you started off with the lease, and the lease, when you first signed the lease, it says this right here in the lease. If you signed that, now we have a conversation.
That's different.
It seems like that's a lot different.
As long as you put it down in the lease, you're good.
Because here's the problem. As far as I don't want the government intervention, right? Only the government does for me is this: abide by my lease. It's not on your lease that she has to do this if she doesn't have the rent. That's the issue. I think that's the biggest issue. But then the issue is if that were to be on the lease, now you got prostitution going and prostitution is illegal. Maybe you can get that off in a state where it's legal.
Or why is it considered prostitution?
Because you're paying for sexual favor.
Everybody does it. What is a date then?
Well, you're explicitly paying for a sexual favor.
Technically, according to people, right? You're not paying for the sex. You're paying for them to leave after the sex. So technically, the money goes towards them exiting the premises as opposed to staying the night.
So you're basically paying for their Uber.
Right, right. It just so happens that the Uber may cost $1,600.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Look, I know there's a state where the prostitution is legal. Is it Vegas?
I know Las Vegas is definitely. I know Las Vegas is on the list.
Well,
I think there are other states that.
I have no problem with two consenting adults doing what they do. The issue is when it comes to the problem where you don't have the money. Now that's like coercion. Now you don't have the money. I'm telling you, look, you ain't got the money. Look, this is what you could do. And that's not right. That's where I'm not right. I'm out. That's morally wrong. It's like, come on, bro. That's wrong. You know.
So what if you don't say it? You just suggest it. You be like, well, you don't got it.
Oh no!
You don't gotta say it, like
no, No. You can't do it that way. You can't do it that way. That's actually a good question too. That was actually a good question because
like you just you hint towards it, and if she pick up what you putting down, then
the problem is there's more than one way of communicating. It's nonverbal communication. So you just communicated non-verbally, and that's the issue.
Exactly. Well,
Now, if you were able to communicate telepathically, and like yeah, that's different.
You gotta hit it with the professor's finger.
Yeah. Like, suck me off. Hey, yo. Oh, man, they got me crazy right there, bro. Yeah. So, even though you didn't say
that would do, though?
What's up?
That would lead up to guys not being able to get apartments. Because think about it. You wouldn't rent your apartment to a guy after that, because then you'd be like, yo, if this dude don't got his rent, ain't nothing for me to suggest there. It'd be like, you got to find my money, bro. Like, ain't
Yeah. See, that'd be messed up.
Word.
Just putting that inside the lease would be terrible. However, if a person signed it and read it, because now the judge would have to think, did you read this thing? Did you read this whole lease? The person probably couldn't get away with it because the prostitution is illegal. You can't do this. But the judge will probably still ask, you signed this lease?
Did you knowingly do this?
Did you really sign this lease? Yeah.
So as a landlord, right? And obviously we're not talking about you, because then we don't want you to get yourself caught up. But as a landlord, how often do you think landlords rent to people based on their looks? Like, a girl walks in, she doesn't have any of the things that they're requesting as far as, the work history, the money in the bank, all that other stuff. But she just looked good. Like, she came in a short skirt, she looked good, she got everything hanging out. Like, how many times do you think male landlords have used this as a means of kind of renting to people? And now they have these like sob stories or horror stories of bad tenants.
I actually thought it was only with other nationalities and not with like with black people. Like, we know better. Like, nah, we don't care. But I find that I'm on my own with this. Like, I'm an exact opposite way. Like, I need you to have your credentials. I don't care what you look like. I pay attention to it, but I don't care what you look like. And as a matter of fact, it's even worse the better you look. Yeah, it's worse the better you look. Yeah.
Now, are you one of those landlords that have like weird stipulations in your lease? Like, you can't have your baby daddy moving in, or you can't have over 10 kids. Like, what are your stipulations in your lease?
Well, as far as adults, whoever's on the lease is who I expect to like be in the house on a daily basis. Like, I don't really be in their business like that, so I haven't had issues.
What about Jody?
Matter of fact, I have had issues. I've had issues. What happens is, because of like the situations and the times we're in, you'll have a 3-bedroom apartment and 10 people will live in there. Yeah, so that's where that comes in. It's like, well, wait, how many people on the lease and how many adults we got? And it's like, whoa, damn, like, you know, you got 2 families, 3 families living in one unit. So that's where that comes into play. But other than that, I kind of like this stay out of people's business. I'm all about like respectable people paying. Like I said, I look at my 15 years of working. You know, I've never been to court for eviction or anything of that notice because I paid right before I had to go to court. So I've actually used to structure my party life with the fact like, okay, I know the landlord's gonna send me this. I'm just gonna have to pay the late fee, pay the court costs, but at least if I pay that, I paid the number before. At least if I pay that, I know I don't have to go to court. I did all that just so I can party and have fun. Didn't really do that much, but I basically figured that out. I leveraged everything out.
I was
That
about
was
to say,
me.
you're a party dude. Like you one of those like go to the club and stand on the sofa dude.
Now, there is a version of me that can come out like that. Yeah, definitely. But now I don't see a need, but I can definitely do that. Yeah.
All right, let me talk to that dude, right?